Tonight on KGW News, left in limbo.
You don't know if they're going to be alive over there.
Amidst the war, families here wait and worry for children they're working to adopt from Ukraine.
Then, the COVID treatment in a pill, where you can get it locally and who's eligible to take it.
And later, the local hospital prescribing a dose of nature to patients and staff alike.
We've really come to think of it as medicine.
Your news starts now.
And we're going to start with breaking news. A police chase has just ended on I-5, blocking part of the interstate. A live look here at the scene now near La Center, Washington. State troopers say they were chasing a suspect wanted for attempted murder and multiple assaults. They used a pit maneuver to stop the car here in Clark County. This is near the Alane Casino exit. Traffic being detoured, as you can see, around that spot.
Here's a look at exactly where this is happening on the map. Northbound lanes of I-5 have been closed from Ridgefield almost up to Woodland. Transportation officials say things are starting to move, as you saw there, but you should still expect some major delays. The southbound lanes have reopened. For the latest information, head to KGW.com. Thank you for joining us on this Friday night. I'm Laurel Porter.
And I'm David Molko. And now to a Vancouver family facing incredible frustration and heartache. Their plans to adopt 2 Ukrainian children now on hold.
And they're not alone. As the war threatens to postpone adoptions for some time, families are pushing to bring the children they love home. Catherine Cook reports.
This is my daughter, Esther.
For months, Julie Yakimchuk and her husband Dennis have dreamed of growing their family. 2 big brothers for little Esther here, 10-year-old Bogdan and his 6-year-old brother Max.
In our hearts, they're already our children.
For the last 2 years, the brothers have lived in separate orphanages in Ukraine. Last summer and again over the winter, the Yakimchuks hosted Bogdan at their Vancouver home through an organization called Host Orphans Worldwide.
Bogdan was such a joy. He was just a joy. We fell in love with him. He's so sweet.
They soon realized they wanted to adopt Bogdan. Max, too, even though they've never met him in person, just by phone. The Yakimchuks began adoption procedures in September. They were closing in on final steps when the war in Ukraine broke out, halting everything. Bogdan had only left the U.S. weeks before that.
It's just been an emotional roller coaster.
Recently, Julie learned Bogdan's orphanage had escaped to Poland and brother Max's orphanage fled to Italy. They've been able to talk with Bogdan by phone.
We sighed a big sigh of relief when they left Ukraine. So we were very thankful for that. But then it's like you have another set of worries. How are we going to get him here?
It's a plight many other families are facing as they try to adopt Ukrainian children.
It feels like their dreams are being shattered.
Daniel Nurbas is president of Nightlight Christian Adoptions, the agency Julie's family is working with. He says to continue adoption proceedings, courts in Ukraine must reopen. Right now, it's just not safe.
Their ministry in charge of adoption sent a message saying, we haven't given up hope. We want all of the refugee kids who are moved to other parts of Eastern Europe back in the country when it's safe, when the war's over, and then we'll resume the adoption decree.
In the meantime, the Yakimchuks would like to host Bogdan again until it's safe for him to return to Ukraine. But the adoption agency says that can be tricky. They say the State Department would likely deny a hosting visa if they'd already applied for an adoption visa.
If the long game is adoption, then we do need to abide by the law and the rules.
Our God is a miracle worker, so nothing's impossible for him.
The Yakimchuks' faith eases their pain, especially as they think about Bogdan.
He's really hopeful. He's asking, when are you going to come see me? When are you going to come get me? And, he told me that just yesterday he broke down crying. And I asked him, why did you cry? He says, well, because I miss you guys.
I asked the adoption agency president his thoughts on a timeline. When might these adoptions be able to go through? He said there's no set answer, but it would need to be safe again to move about the streets of Kyiv.
Let us hope someone can help them cut through all that bureaucracy. Thank you, Catherine, for that story. Let's get to the 3 things to know about the war in Ukraine tonight. First, U.S. defense officials say the city of Kherson in southern Ukraine is no longer under Russian control. It's now considered contested territory. Now, if Ukrainian forces manage to push Russian soldiers out and retake that city, it would represent a major battlefield setback for Russia. Kherson was the first large city Russia captured. during its invasion. Okay, number 2, Ukrainian authorities now claim 300 people were killed when Russia bombed a theater in Mariupol last week. Families had been sheltering there, trying to escape the violence. The pavement outside was even marked with the word children in large lettering that was visible from the air. Now, if that death toll is independently confirmed, it would be the deadliest attack on civilians in the war. Number 3, President Biden is in Poland meeting with Ukrainian refugees and U.S. troops deployed there. The president is now promising more help for Ukraine. He's also preparing for a major address from Poland Saturday that the White House says will, quote, speak to the stakes of this moment. Laurel.
To keep up on the latest from the invasion and find out ways you can help those fleeing Ukraine, text the word Ukraine to 503-226-5088, and we will text you back a link to a special section on our website. You can also go straight to kgw.com/Ukraine.
Everyone can help, even in a small way. So now to new details on a startling shooting in Washington County. And we use the word startling, no, not to minimize other times shots are fired, but because the sheriff's department says a 51-year-old man fired 80 to 100 rounds with multiple firearms. And this was in the middle of the afternoon around 2:40 on Northwest Cornelius Pass and Germantown Road. A truck driver in the area reported shots fired through his windows, and then as deputies were using a drone to look for the suspect, they say he shot at it but didn't hit it. So a negotiations team helped arrest the suspect, named by police as Todd Borino. Fortunately, no one was injured in all of that.
To COVID news now, more treatment, this time in the form of a pill, is now available in limited supply at some urgent cares in the area. AFC Urgent Care has enough of the Merck antiviral pill to treat 24 people. Dr. Andy Miller says AFC is the first clinic in the metro area to administer these pills. And this is how it works. Doctors test you for COVID. If you come up positive and you're over the age of 18 with an underlying health condition or over the age of 65, then you qualify.
Is 4 pills twice a day for 5 days. So we are able to dispense all 40 pills in a bottle. We hand it off to the patients who qualify at the end of their visit after they've had a positive COVID test.
Dr. Miller says the pills are free for patients because the federal government has already covered the $700 cost for each bottle. He says they expect they will use all their doses by the end of the weekend, and they plan to order more.
Well, due dates, Dewey Decimals, and diversity. Any thoughts here? Okay, thousands of librarians are wrapping up the biggest conference this city has hosted in 2 years. Our Pat Doris was particularly fascinated by the gathering of librarians. We're not quite sure why, so we will let him do the explaining as he went inside to find out what it was all about.
We're coming to you from the National Librarians Convention here in Portland. There are a lot of librarians here, more than 4,000, and it's not quiet at all. We wanted to come here to find out what makes librarians tick, what are they talking about, why do they get into the business, and what's the future hold? And we got a lot of good answers. The convention looks a bit like a typical business convention with lots of speakers. This one's talking about why libraries should use multiple languages.
It's going to be about 38% of the country is Hispanic or Latin origin in the next 20 to 30 years.
There's also vendor displays. This one specializes in independent authors and keeps an eye out for writers of color. So does Richard Ashby Jr. from the Pittsburgh Library.
I catalog independent author books, which you otherwise wouldn't find in a library because the major publishing houses just aren't publishing books from black and brown authors. And the narrative is we can't find them. But you don't go to the Waffle House to look for a steak dinner.
So the reality is you got to know where to look for them.
You got to know where to look for them.
Diversity is a big topic here, how to get more librarians who look like the public they serve, and how to get everyone using the library. Another big issue, digital access. COVID shut down many libraries, including the one Dr. Brandy McNeil works at in New York. She told me it was up and running online in 2 weeks.
Who does that help? That helps the people who have access. And so it's about making sure that there's a balance between in-person programming as well as virtual programming that will ensure that we can help all people. And if people don't have virtual, how can we help them to get access to that?
It's a gathering of smart, focused people, and they're thinking a lot about how the libraries can help their communities. It's intriguing for people like Addie Mathis, who grew up in Oregon City and now lives in California. She's here because she's thinking about leaving a career in healthcare to become a librarian.
I think one of the biggest things is is how much work there is happening in public libraries around like social work and social justice, like the ways that libraries are partnering with different organizations to help support people who don't have houses or people who don't have access to different sorts of things. Like it's so much more than just information.
Librarians at one time seemed to me to be kind of a boring crowd. They are certainly not. Who do you know who can talk seriously about the Dewey Decimal System with tattoos on their knuckles? Lindsay Mascotti from Denver can.
But I think libraries across the board like Dewey, and we're going to stick with Dewey. It's more of a librarian's tool than it is for the public, but we try to teach the public how to use it because it is pretty easy.
You know, I feel like Pat would be right at home with an old card catalog. For much more for the Pat and the team, be sure to check out The Story every weekday at 6 right here on KGW. That made me chuckle. Okay.